Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are joined by Luca Franchi, who is CEO of Ambient. Ambient's a really cool project, has taken over the PlanetWatch project. So really looking forward to digging into that, finding out about Ambient today. And Luca, welcome onto the podcast.
Great to be here, Leo, and great to be able to talk about Ambient.
Brilliant. And let's start on that note. I think a great place to start is just a very quick introduction to maybe what brought you into Ambient, and just give the listeners an overview of what Ambient is doing.
Sure thing. So Luca Franchi, co-founder and CEO at Ambient, we're building the world's largest environmental DePIN, and the only environmental DePIN on Solana. So that's really exciting. We have 10,000 sensors continuously monitoring air quality across 20 markets, as well as some 21,000 plus mobile users with our Ambigo app, having completed over 250,000 check-ins just recently. So really exciting. But over time, our vision is to launch sensors that will allow us to capture complementary environmental metrics like noise and light pollution, on top of course, the air quality, pollen and allergens, and other elements, all under this wider environmental umbrella, with a mission to become the leading environmental platform globally, powered by DePIN. So that's our mission and what we aim to achieve.
Amazing. What does Ambient mean? What is ambient data?
Ambient data means anything that we can capture from environmental sensors. So today, again, we're starting with an existing footprint of air quality sensors. So capturing, the various elements in the air, from particles to carbon to other oxygen levels and whatnot, and it gives us an idea of course, the condition outdoor as well as the condition indoor. But Ambient, we see that as a more encompassing approach to how can we properly get a sense through hyper local sensors and live data across these kind of tightly stitched mesh networks of sensors to better understand what's happening at the ground level. A number of the solutions out there today don't account for that micro understanding, that take a much more macro perspective, especially when you come and look at the satellite imagery used in Copernicus in Europe and some of the other solutions. They're just not able to identify those local events or hyper local events. So that's where this sort of network comes and provides a significant benefit to have that better understanding.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same thing we've seen with many other DePINs, right? It's taking the DePIN concept to get that micro approach rather than the macro approach that exists. So looking forward to speaking about some of the use cases and target audiences in a second. But before we do, I'd love to just touch on the takeover of PlanetWatch, if that is the right way to phrase it. So yeah, what led you to take that route rather than starting a whole new project from scratch?
So we saw a great opportunity to, repurpose an existing network and community that had achieved, quite successfly in its own way. This DePIN naturally was one of the OGs, back even when Helium started, so that's something that we could repurpose. Of course, we could take over and make or introduce as part of this bigger vision that we have around environmental monitoring, because today air quality is a small market, or part of the bigger environmental monitoring market, which is forecast to be a $40 billion market in 2030. So there's a significant opportunity for us to deliver that data, but the previous project never managed to deliver that demand. And so we came in with a view that we could have a greater focus on commercial activity, on driving those data sales, on creating those enterprise partnerships that could propel the network to the next level, and then look to add some of these additional sensors and create a multi-layered DePIN of different sensors that provide different commercial opportunities from a data and enterprise perspective.
Yeah, amazing. It makes total sense. Why not use the existing infrastructure that's already out there? And my next question was going to be, what are some of the learnings you've taken from PlanetWatch? But I think you answered it perfectly. It sounds like you're focusing more on the commercial side to make sure that the revenues come in to support the ecosystem. Is that a reasonable summary?
No, definitely. Coming at it from with a fresh pair of eyes, trying to understand, how can we really create value for the network, for all the participants. And how do we naturally identify those partners on the data side, on the hardware side, on the enterprise and retail brands that we want to bring on board, that are already on board in some cases, that we'll be announcing soon, to create this flywheel effect of participation, of deployment, of consumption. That of course is what we're all trying to achieve with some of these DePIN projects.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the market for a second there. So you've alluded to the fact that it's a very big market. Perhaps you can give us an overview of that, and what are the problems that you're solving by collecting this data?
So what we're solving is that, because typically these sensors, whether they're deployed by private industry, by municipalities, by governments, by research organizations, they're typically quite spread out, and they don't cover, again, those truly hyper local events. So we're coming in and filling that gap, and providing real-time hyper-local information from our live feed to the weather organizations, or the environmental data marketplaces. And there's a number of other data marketplaces that we'll be targeting. But we signed our first deal for the environmental data marketplace that we'll be launching with, that will be announced in a week or so. That gives us an opportunity then to target a number of customers from the aviation industry, from the insurance industry, from municipalities, even trying to get a better understanding of their local conditions. But there's also this whole component of because of the acquisition, the historic data that we've captured, which goes back to 4 years, which is even more valuable than the live data that we of course broadcast. And there's also different ways of cutting that data. You can have live plus rolling 7 days, plus rolling 365 days, or access to our entire repository across 2 continents, Europe and the US, which is where our presence is. So there's a number of ways to cut those commercial opportunities, to work with different partners across the weather space. In the weather space, primarily because today we just provide, as we ingest raw data from across our network. The next step would naturally be to become that destination ourselves, to be able to create that analytics and decision making, so that folks can just subscribe to the services that we offer. But today, clearly working with folks that can handle that data.
Amazing. Love the commercial focus there. And you mentioned weather data and weather forecasting quite a few times there. Do you see that as like the low-hanging fruit, the obvious first kind of go after? Or are there other segments that are also equally as important from day one?
Those are the existing buyers. Those are the existing commercial opportunities. So that is the low-hanging fruit, and we've brought on folks as well from the industry to be able to help us to, of course, reach out to the right players out there, to be able to engage with them, to be able to, and we have, by the way, a handful of some of the larger weather brands that you recognize already sampling our data and understanding how they can ingest that as part of their models, their forecasting models. So I think it is the opportunity today. Moving forward, the idea would be to use these same sales channels that we're creating now to then add the additional metrics that the network will be capturing, because it will allow us to double and triple our revenues and so on. So there's clearly synergy over time in being able to do that across a number of complementary metrics. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, and it sounds like you've achieved a lot in a short space of time. When did you guys set up the project?
In January. So my as you can see, my hair has gone completely gray, and it's been already a long slog, as much as it was a short amount of time. But we knew that we had to, partly because of the acquisition, the legacy network, and the participants, of course, wanting to see those results, because they had been left, if you will, hanging for quite some time with the previous project. But we needed to run. We needed to accomplish a whole lot to capture also the macro conditions of within the market, and to be able to shout about what we're doing. And a lot of that time was actually us re-engineering the platforms that we needed to deliver on, to land on Solana, to create something more scalable, to remove the tech debt from the previous network. Of course, that's in itself a significant initiative, but then you combine that with migration and incentive plans for the legacy participants, and being able to manage the existing community, as well as focus on how we're going to make this successful. What are the components that we need to deliver on that initial vision? But now, very excited to say that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We started the migration in November, early November. So now we're at the end of November already, but we've delivered a number of components as part of that platform, the building blocks that will allow us to basically, take it to the next level, and have also, wider participation. And today we launched our marketplace, which is really exciting. So that participants, new and old, can come and join. The mission, can buy one of these sensors that we have, across the board. And here's one of the consumer versions, and I have the other one in the living room. I've been using that to showcase that as well. But that's the first step, of course, in being able to grow the network again, get new participants in, and then we'll be launching the token in the coming months, and that will be quite exciting, as well as new devices.
Wow. I mean, yeah, as I said, so much been done in such a short space of time already, which is great to see. To pick out a few of your key achievements or partnerships, would you be able to select a few that really come to mind for you?
So I think on the enterprise side, we've been really excited to announce, we launched at the Japanese Village Plaza in Los Angeles, in Little Tokyo. It's a commercial center of some 30 retailers from Japan, so quite a unique space. And we've installed our indoor sensors as well as an outdoor unit, but across these retail spaces. And that's also, a big deployment for helium. So we're looking forward to collaborating on those fronts. But it gives us access or to create a blueprint for other similar commercial centers and shopping malls and whatnot. And then the Best Western in Las Vegas, the McCarran Inn by the airport. So again, there we have an outdoor and indoor setup. And indoor, it's 110 rooms, so a sensor in every room to be able to identify, conditions again at that micro level, but also to be able to automate ventilation with the hotel to improve conditions and also get better understanding of what's happening within each room from an air quality perspective. And that will naturally allow us to start to become a supplier to the Best Western chain over time, to also use that same blueprint model deployment and improvement model for the air quality to take over to other hotel chains. And we have other deployments that have not been announced yet, but with parks, so public parks, long stretches of green, but also in urban areas, so to better understand those conditions over time. We have deployments with gas stations, giving us a full footprint of a city. We're talking about doing something similar for a whole footprint of an entire country in Latin America. Again, installments over or deployments over gas station roofs, and that creates yield. That creates an opportunity for these players to also give back to the community, to showcase some of those local conditions, and also, of course, to benefit from the data sales, because we do a revenue share with the sensors that originate that data. And so there is a benefit in, of course, the commercial activity that we do. We don't just buy tokens and burn them. We also give additional rewards on top of the daily mining rewards. And so those are some of the achievements that we've done today. I mean, of course, we also have I mentioned Ambigo app, which launched in August. We now have 21,000 plus users. We've done 250,000 check-ins. We have migrated the network. We have these 10,000 sensors that are now on our Solana stack, and we launched our storefront. So, there's so much more behind the scenes, of course. And so much more to also deliver on, especially from an enterprise perspective, and delivering that value and engagement.
It was great to hear some of the use cases there as well. So just to clarify, there's two different types of devices. I mean, there's a few models, but you've basically got indoor devices and outdoor devices.
Yeah.
It seems to me like the indoor devices are the ones that are probably going to be more useful for the person or entity deploying them? You mentioned the hotel chain. They can get information on every single room, which then automates some do you say that it opens air vents in certain situations?
Well, if it's linked to the HVAC system, the ventilation systems, then it can actually automate how much air is being pumped in which environments. And so instead of constantly, as some hotels do, constantly pumping air across the property, that comes at a significant cost, as you can imagine, energy cost. So we're able to automate that to make it specific to each environment, and also to reduce energy cost over time.
Amazing. So it's useful for the installer. It's very passive. Once you've set it up, you can kind of forget about it. You don't need to tinker with it. And so what I was getting at is the indoor devices sound like they're very useful for the entities setting them up, whereas the outdoor devices sound like the ones that have more commercial value for you guys to actually resell the data on. Is that a fair assessment?
Very, very correct. Yes, that's right. The outdoor, that's where the data marketplace is today. That's where the commercial opportunity is from a data set perspective. Indoor, it's more about improving your conditions indoor. But we also believe that there's an opportunity to install these sensors across retail spaces over time, and that's partly what our app Ambigo helps us understand, where our users are, the places that they check into every day, across the bars, cafes, restaurants, and whatnot. And so that over time we can identify where we should be installing our indoor sensors. And if you can imagine, an air quality sensor that also has light and noise pollution, to be able to, bring that to retail, so that over time, we can go beyond just the Google, what Google tells you today, is this place busy, but to have that real feed also for OpenTable, Booking.com, and whatnot, across, how busy is a place, because we can measure that from an oxygen perspective as well, or carbon dioxide, but also what's the air quality, what's the noise, has the natural light, and start to bring in that data into the decisioning for you to where you want to go next, depending on these real-time metrics.
Wow, super interesting. I would never have jumped to that to that place and imagine they could be used for that use case. So really cool. I'd love to look forwards a bit, Luca. So let's say in the next 6 to 12 months or through 2025, what are some of the goals that you have in mind?
So 2025, we'll definitely have our token live. We'll have introduced new sensors specific to air quality. We'll have started to experiment with some additional metrics. So whether we'll be fully deployed or not, but ultimately, I want to be able to start to target some of the complementary components that I mentioned earlier. Also, to have ideally a form factor that we can start to introduce to create multi-miners with other DePIN projects. I think that's quite powerful. Both for the folks deploying it, as well as the projects that we'll be working with, and we're in discussions with a number of others.
Can you say at the moment, is it too early to say who you have ideas to partner with, or is that not something you can disclose?
I think I'll just more generally talk about of course there is number one, other weather DePINs that don't do what we do, but it's complementary data to what we do. There is flight tracking solutions where we could bring something that is more fit for airports and airlines, especially when you imagine air quality and noise monitoring near some of these stations. There is connectivity DePINs that we can easily combine our sensors with and piggyback off of their connectivity as well, but we can bundle them together. There's also both outdoor and indoor DePINs that typically install in the same locations that we do, so it makes a lot of sense. So a number of opportunities there.
100%. And I was speaking with the Wingbits team about the same thing. It really does make sense to start to bundle these hardware devices together. So I think that's a great approach. Awesome. And so in terms of how you guys are going to measure success, is it just the growth of the network and then the growth of the progress with potential clients? Are they the two main factors? What metrics are you looking at?
That there's definitely a big component is growth, about increasing density and increasing coverage. I think that is a key KPI, because today we're across, again, a number of markets already, but how do we fill in those gaps and create that greater coverage in order to sell more data? So of course it's growth, of course it's participants within the ecosystem, a greater engagement as well from the community to drive some of these initiatives more directly, and governance perspective, to naturally also look at the success that we'll be delivering on the commercial aspect, on the data sales, on the marketplaces where we're live, and on the revenues that we're generating, to understand also, how we then inch our way up to some of those additional revenue streams, and ultimately how we can exploit and leverage the data that is collected across the network to create those commercial sales. Those are certainly the key things, and all of that with a view to also make that on chain and visible, and for everybody to have that confidence that that it's all happening publicly. So those are the key things that we need to achieve next year, naturally.
Amazing. And I love the community-driven approach by the sounds of things as well. On that note, how can people listening to this get involved?
Yeah, of course. Visit ambient.network, our website. Follow us on Twitter, Ambient Network. We have our storefront live on our website. You can register for our Ambigo app directly from the website as well. And follow me, Lucky Luca, on Twitter. And let's chat. Of course, Discord and our channel there is fantastic as well for anybody wanting to learn more about what we're up to and get the latest updates.
Amazing. We're going to put all those links in the description to the video as well. So go and visit those links and get yourself a device. Luke, to finish up, some DePIN specific questions that I ask all the founders that come on. So first of all, why the DePIN model for Ambient?
The existing networks out there, especially when it comes to environmental monitoring, just don't have the incentives. So you have existing, more traditional projects out there that are using more of the citizen scientist model of, you buy a sensor from us and we'll take the data from you and sell it, thank you very much, and nothing back to the participants. But that has allowed them to achieve a certain level of success just on the basis of their product, and it's a very good product, but not to necessarily expand into the areas where there may be demand for that data. So I think it targets, a DePIN model targets both of those, the creation of those incentives and alignment with the wider mission of the network, as well as creating or helping create that commercial value for the data sale itself.
Next up, what are the differences between running a Web 2 and Web 3 business?
Web 3 business, you're basically running three separate entities all at the same time. And sometimes you wonder, is this overly complex? And I'm sure there's ways to simplify. But ultimately, it's about also making sure that all of that is on chain, that is visible, that there is that level of trust and permissionless approach, ultimately to what you do. So I think that's a key difference. In a Web 2 model, you're doing everything internally, and folks don't get the visibility. In Web 3, you have to be completely open, and that comes with its own pros and cons. While at the same time running, the developer, the foundation, and the token issuer, and looking at how you can run the sort of economic models that you want to run to incentivize certain behaviors, while at the same time dealing with the treasury component and the token, while still figuring out, okay, well, we still need to build out a product and a platform and a service. So what's the roadmap for that? So, careful what you wish for, but it's very exciting.
There's a lot going on, right? A lot of moving parts, a lot of components. If there are any listeners to this who have a great idea and are thinking of building their own DePIN, starting their own DePIN, what advice would you give to other DePIN founders?
First of all, it always takes longer than you think. So as they say, measure twice and cut once. Bring others on board that have done it before, advisors from the ecosystem. It's also not a massive community. At the end of the day, we all know each other, and I think it's important to work together, but also to help others, as part of this journey, and help the tide rise, for everyone. So definitely bring others that have that knowledge and have been there before you, so you can learn from their learnings and their mistakes, because there's a lot there, and it's a complex model, but one that I think has a great excitement and participation from across the ecosystem. So get involved.
Yeah, Absolutely. No, we're all completely pumped to be here. Really excited to watch Ambient grow, and actually to have you back on the podcast next year as well, Luca, to see what we've achieved between now and then. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great. Thank you, Leo. Pleasure, and speak soon.